Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Straight Out of the S podcast. Thank you so much for people that have donated. Thank you, Janine, for being my Patreon member. I really appreciate it. It means the world to me. All donations are invested back into the podcast. Links are in the description. I just wanted to touch on that briefly and shout out people that have helped by buying a shirt or donating. It really means the world, more than you know. And I don't do this for the money, but it always helps to improve the podcast. So with that being said, I want to do a moment of silence for the person still suffering with drug addiction, intrusive thoughts, anything like that. So on the count of three, I'm going to do a moment of silence. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for that. And with that being said, I want to go ahead and introduce my guest for today. Go ahead and introduce yourself and what school you went to and what year.
Hi, my name is Katie, and I went to Crosscreek Manor in Laverkin, Utah from September 11th, 2004 until June 2006.
Okay, and were you transported or did your parents bring you up there?
I was not transported. My mom told me I was going to go check out this boarding school so that my grandmother, my Nana, would get off of our backs and that it was just to be checked out and then go home.
Same kind of thing that my parents did to me. They said we're going to check out this school, and yeah, they're like, we'll be back, but of course we were never back. All right. So how old were you when you went there?
I was 15 and a half, and I was kind of flailing in life like 8 months prior. I had right after my 15th birthday, I moved from Maui to Las Vegas. My dad had met a woman, and pretty quickly, within 3 months, we were upping our life and moving to Vegas. And in the winter, in the middle of my sophomore year, and I never made it back to school until I was in Cross Creek in September. So almost an entire year I was out of school.
Wait, so you moved and then you went to Cross Creek after you moved? Is that?
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. Right after our move, I had to go get, like a physical to start a new school, especially with a new state. They have different regulations, a physical, whatever. And I had to get a whole bunch of shots. And about 2 weeks later, I got really sick and like with flu. And I was sick for a long time. And then things just started to get really crazy. Like I couldn't sleep at night. I was losing a lot of weight. I was gaining a lot of weight. My moods were really dramatic and it was really unexplained. And I felt like, even though I'd be laughing, I felt like Eeyore, where he like walks around with a rain cloud over his head.
Yeah.
And no one knew what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. And so my stepmom and my dad, I've learned that he's got some pretty heavy narcissistic traits. And if you know anything about narcissists, they love bomb people and they use other people as scapegoats. So when it was just me and him in Hawaii, we were super close and I got love bombed like crazy. And then as soon as he had new supply, which was this new woman, which escalated super fast, there was no room for me. So I was living in a home where I was being rejected. I was sick and feeling like all over the place. And so automatically my stepmom and my dad started accusing me of using drugs. There was no explanation, just she must be on meth, and never touched meth ever in my life. Like I had smoked weed a few times here and there, especially in Hawaii. Like that's just like kind of the way of life pretty much over there. But it was never something that I enjoyed so much that I would call myself an addict. And so it started to spiral like out of control where no one would listen to me. My parents were saying, you're just like your mom, you're bipolar, you're using meth. I don't know where you're getting it. You must be making it. And it got so bad that I was like, this is such a joke. Like, yeah, I'm using meth. Totally. this is
Yeah,
who I am. I'm this. Yeah, it's just not in my nature to be that heavy of like a criminal. Not, I don't want to say that other people that are using meth are criminals, but it was just so far-fetched. So I started mocking them, and they just didn't hear me. So one day I tried to run away, and they had put like beepers on every door and window, and it was a 2-story house. So I did the silliest thing and like tied my sheets together in knots to like throw out the window and shimmy on down the 2-story building.
Damn, like you Rapunzel.
And I was,
That's crazy.
yeah, I've only seen it in movies. I didn't know if it was gonna work, but I didn't care because no one was hearing me. No one was listening. That there was like nothing I can do or say that was gonna get these people to hear me, because I was already a manipulative brat. I was triangulating. Like, they were throwing all these crazy words at me, and I'm just like, I'm 15. Like, I just moved from my beautiful home in the middle of the Pacific to Las Vegas, where I have no friends. My dad no longer wants to talk to me. I have this stepmom who's saying I'm using meth. And now I haven't been healthy in months. So it was in April that I tried to jump out the window with my sheets, and I was going to run away, and they heard the window open, and that's where shit just got crazy. Like, my dad threw me down a flight of stairs, slammed my head on tile, jumped on top of me. My stepmom called the police, said I was trying to kill myself. I was handcuffed to a bed in St. Rose Hospital in Henderson for 3 days. And then I spent 2 weeks in a inpatient adolescent hospital for 2 weeks, where I was on Seroquel, Zyprexa, Paxil, and that shit's so heavy. Like, have you ever been on any of those?
What were they again?
Seroquel, Paxil, and Zyprexa.
I've been on Seroquel.
Yeah, that was the worst one. I remember taking it and sitting in the doctor's office on the couch, and he was like, "So how are you feeling?" And I remember I couldn't even like open my, like, say anything, and I could feel the drool running down the side of my face because I was just so sedated. But I could see everything that was going on, but I was gone physically, like, just unresponsive. And so I don't know, it's crazy. Like, I have this folder, and it has all the times that they administered the medication and how I reacted to it and what I did. And so 2 weeks I was in there, and then I got out. I'm just downloading all this stuff as quickly as I can.
No, you're fine.
And I spent the summer in San Diego with my Nana, and I was in summer school at Mission Bay High School, and just trying to do my best. And I started hiding the medicine in my mouth and not taking it. And
Yeah.
I remember telling my Nana, like, I'm getting better. Can you tell? Like, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling more stable. Like, can you see that I'm getting better? And she was like, yeah, I can tell. And then I was just so stupid and said, well, I've stopped taking it about a month ago. Like, I've been hiding it in my mouth and spitting it out. And that's pretty much, I was about 2 or 3 weeks out from being driven to Utah. I tried to call my dad and talk to him about everything that was going on. And he was like, you're never going to be welcome in our home again. Just pretty heavy stuff. You've destroyed everything. Like, there's no trust with you. And so that night I had been hiding like a 8-ounce water bottle of vodka, and I drank it, and I just had the biggest meltdown. like with my grandparents of why doesn't my dad love me? You know, just begging for information on why it was so heavy and what I could do to make it better. And they, about 2 weeks later, my mom was like, all right, we're driving to Las Vegas. And her and I drank the night before and danced and like walked around with those really tall, you know, slushy drinks. And then she went and bought me this really nice outfit. She's like, this is a great outfit. And like, you're really going to blow these people away and show them that you don't need to be there. And I'm like, yeah, totally believing her. And so we went, and it was like the saddest face I've ever seen my mom. She doesn't show emotion very often. So when I turned to her, the lady said, this really fat woman was like, you're going to be here. You're going to be staying. And I look at my mom, and she was like smiling, but trying to hold back tears. And my gut just dropped. Like, it was like the most nauseating feeling of betrayal I have ever experienced. And then these two big guys walk in the doorway, and they just reeked of alcohol. And they walked me down an aisle, and that was the last time I saw my mom for a year. And then we went into the intake process. So that I was a trooper, though. Like, I wasn't resistant. I wasn't angry. I wasn't mean. I was more in shock. And being like living for a while in Hawaii, it's frowned upon if you're aggressive. So I just try to be as positive and optimistic as possible. But it's hard when they're telling you to take off all your clothes in front of, you know, random women that look like they should be working the night shift at 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
And smelling of cigarettes and alcohol, and they're telling you to get naked in this really weird bedroom with 4 beds and baskets lined up and a vignette with everybody's clothes perfectly spaced. And it was dark. There's no windows. All the curtains or the blinds are shut. And they put this cold, like, lice liquid all over your head. And then they give you about like 3 or 4 minutes to go and shower it all off. And I just remember it burning. And then they give you your orange shirt.
What did they put on you?
What? It was like a lice, a delicer.
Okay.
Pesticide.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe with the girls, it's pretty standard, especially if you have long hair. I don't know. They didn't really check me, but I had it put all over me, and it was just the smelliest crap ever. And then they give you your orange shirt, and when we were done with intake, it was dinner time. And so they walked me into this tiny cafeteria with carpet, and it smelled so bad in there. And I sat down, and the girls were able to talk. And I remember I was just trying to be positive. Hi, my name is Katie. What are you here for? I don't know. I got behavioral problems. Like, my family is really dysfunctional. And they were like, oh yeah, well, you belong in M group. M group is all about family dysfunction. And I remember the first rule I broke was I said this Hawaiian word, and it means sweetheart. And everybody just stopped and like stared at me. And I'm just like, what? And they're like, oh my God, you can get run plans for saying that. You're not allowed to speak another language. And I was just like, that was like the first moment of, holy shit, where the fuck am I? Like, the way that these girls would light up, almost like excited when there was a rule being broken. And that's kind of one of the points I wanted to go on, was there's definitely like a popularity issue going on, especially with your levels. If you weren't popular with the girls or the staff, good luck getting your levels. Like, because you have to be voted up within your group.
Yeah, and people would always stand for you, even if you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Just so you couldn't vote up. That happened to me on level 5. That's why I never got level 6. Because on level 6, for level 6, you can't have a single person stand up for you for anything.
Yeah, that's when level 4 and 5, I feel, is the most jealousy you see from the other girls, because you're getting there. You're working the program and you're moving up, and some girls have a really hard time getting past focus. And I think discovery and focus are one of the more harder seminars, and they choose out people all the time. They kick girls out all the time. There was some girls in my group that went through it like 3 or 4 times. And finally, when they would go to vote up to level 5 after focus, people just voted them up out of just pity. Like, they chose out so many times. But if you go through your first time, if you go through your seminars without a hiccup, good luck getting to a higher level, because it's just too easy for you. You must be faking it. So there is really twisted manipulation of faking the program. If you actually understood that you had to brainwash yourself and comply and work with these people just to get the fuck out of there. And that's what I did. I knew that it was screwed up. I don't have any stories of abuse, but a mental abuse and what's done to me after is probably, it's the hardest thing for me to cope with, because I cannot, I can't, I don't know, like when I'm alone, I can't be alone. It freaks me out. Yeah, like relationships with people, it's either so deep that it freaks people out, and it's hard to keep friendships. Yeah, so you meet someone and you feel a connection with them, and you're like, oh my God, let me tell you my life story. I found someone that I can relate to, and then they never talk to you again. I'm just like, God, I should just keep my mouth shut. Like, because I can't do the surfacey, like, oh yeah, where did you go to school? Oh, that's great. Oh yeah, your kids are so cute, and then keep it at that and think that you're going to be friends, because that's just surfacey bullshit, and it's not deep, and you're not working real relationships. So what's the point of even trying? So
no, yeah, I jump into stuff way too fast, and then especially it's just definitely, and relationships and friendships are really hard for me.
Yep, because they pound you with stuff like, if anyone says they're gonna try, they might as well be saying they're not going to.
Yeah,
so
time.
Yeah, that's just a lie. And then anytime there's an excuse, that person is also telling you they don't give a shit about what you think or what you have to say. So I get really quick to judge. And this is just normal people conversation. This is other people that haven't done that core self-finding work that we were forced with at such a young age. And so even though these are like great tools for a 30-year-old person, when you're 15 years old, having to find yourself and create SMART goals and internalize emotions and feelings and belief systems, like these are things that I feel like we emotionally were not ready for them. Like we should have been enjoying our lives. We should have been in high school going to prom. We should have been able to learn what it's like to have like a real boyfriend, or to get our permits and our driver's license. Like we were robbed of that. And so here we are in our adult life, like aching for that kind of childlike experience. And what that's done to me is I own a business. I have 2 kids, and I hide behind, like, I have my husband do all the client interactions because I don't feel like I'm an adult. So I get afraid that other people are not going to see me as an adult. And so the self-confidence in being 34 years old, I just don't have it. I still feel like I'm 15 years old. I am so stuck there. And from just not experiencing that life.
Well, freezing is a trauma response. So you were 15 when you got sent to the program. So in essence, you're frozen at 15. Like you still have all the knowledge, like from the years after that, obviously. But like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, that's you literally freeze with trauma. So like, I completely understand what you mean.
Yeah, and it's startling because I've been kind of on like a healing journey for the past couple years. 2 years ago, I finally realized that my dad is a narcissist, and I never understood. So almost every day, he hasn't spoken to me in like 15 years. Like but it feels like just yesterday. And you know what's really strange about Cross Creek is my dad never worked any of the seminars. He never went to any of the seminars, but he was able to just drop in and take me on a day pass. And I never quite understood why. Yeah, I never understood why, because I'm like, he's not working the program. Like, why aren't you going to your discovery and your focus? My stepdad went, my mom went, my nana went. All 3 of them went to all their seminars. I went to 2 PC1s.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just those seminars are twisted. And I have to say, like, some girls, like, their focus stretch was so spot on. Mine made no sense.
What was your stretch?
My stretch was the Aladdin song of him and Jasmine when they're flying on their magic carpet.
Okay.
And I just danced around in just stupid pieces of cloth. Like, it wasn't a stretch. I'm just like, okay, like, I guess I'm gonna do a little twirl here. And then did they ever play Desperado in any of your seminars?
Fuck yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
There's some songs, Desperado, Ain't No Mountain High, anything by Deepak Chopra.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things are just so awful and so triggering. And it takes me back to sitting in the cafeteria, which they had a remodeled cafeteria like a month after I had gotten there, to this really big, nice room. But imagine about 100 to 150 girls sitting in a cafeteria, and, keep it to a low rumble, girls. Okay. Within 5 minutes, it's like, it's loud as fuck.
Yeah.
So some staff would come over and just be like, hey, you guys got to quiet down or you're going to get a tape on. And so, we'd try, but other staff, they would just scream at the top of their lungs, shut up. And then they turn the tape on and you had to be silent. And then you're just sitting there listening to the same tape about transcending through the ceiling, or Anthony Robbins, whatever he has to say. It's very repetitive. And then worksheets. I've heard some people talk on your podcast about worksheets. So worksheets was, if you got a lot of categories and you broke rules and you needed to work off your points so that you can go up on a level, you would have to spend a weekend in worksheets, which was a room with really old-fashioned desks made of wood that would stab you in the back. Like, you had to sit up properly or else you'd have a bruised spine. And you would sit there listening to the classics of Voltaire and Plato and books, Grapes of Wrath and whatever, all these Pride and Prejudice. And you'd listen to them and you'd fill out the little bubbles, and eventually you'd get so good at it because you've done the same test over and over and over, and it's just mindless sitting there for hours on end. Probably in a weekend you could spend 20 hours, so 10 hours a day sitting in the chair, filling in bubbles, trying to work off your points so that you could continue working your program. But I have to say, I did read my very first full chapter book while I was there, and it was Harry Potter. And
Yeah.
I swear the Harry Potter books is what got me through the program. I would imagine I was at Hogwarts, and here I am walking and talking. Yeah, you did the same thing?
I read a lot. That was definitely an escape.
Yeah, I read all the books. In fact, I would read them again if I could, because every other book, they had blacked out Sharpie every other sentence or cut out pages and chapters missing. And I don't know if they did that at other schools, but this was very strong Mormon based. So they got rid of a lot of content that they didn't want the girls reading.
I went to Spring Creek Lodge, so I wasn't actually too far from you guys. Well, I was in a different state, obviously. I was in Montana, but Cross Creek and Spring Creek are fairly well known when people talk about boarding schools.
I do remember. Yeah, I remember there was some Spring Creekers that came to Cross Creek there.
Yep.
And what was that for? Do you remember? Was it a seminar?
Why they would have transfers? I thought you were talking about transfers to different programs.
No, it was like maybe some high levels came to possibly a staff a key.
Oh,
PC2.
Seminar. PC2. We had Spring Creek had PC2 at Cross Creek in Utah. I'm pretty sure it's either PC2 or PC3, but I'm pretty sure it's PC2.
Yeah, PC3 is the graduation, and that's usually in LA or San Diego.
Yeah, PC2.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So I actually went to the Cross Creek facility. I've been there once, but
yeah,
been there.
Yeah, I can't believe that it's a hotel now. That's terrifying. I've been to Utah 2 or 3 times since I've been out, and the first time was with an ex-boyfriend, and he wanted to go to Zion. Oh my God, Zion's so beautiful. It is the darkest, most horrible place I've ever been. Like, I don't see the beauty in Utah. It's terrifying to me. Like, I went to Arches a couple years ago, and that's great, but just being in the state is so haunting. And I don't know if anybody else has ever experienced this, but I'm looking for someone who can relate. When COVID lockdown happened, was anyone triggered by that? The stay in your home, do not leave.
You cut out a little bit. So were you initially? Could you just re-ask the question?
Yeah. So I'm looking for someone who can relate to me. I'm changing subjects. We're going to when COVID happened, the COVID shutdown. Was anybody triggered by that shutdown? Was it like kind of scary to be told to not leave your home? And because it took me right back to the day I was like drugged down the hallway and left at Cross Creek, like being told I could not leave.
Yeah, no, definitely. I understand why you would have that feeling. I mean, just being told you can't leave, that's the same shit that we were told in the program, like you can't leave. Like we were reminded of that every day, like multiple times. So, I mean, me personally, I didn't get triggered by it, but I can understand why it would trigger some people.
Yeah, I felt like I was the only one, and I'm just like, this is wrong, people. Like, we're being put on house arrest. Like, I've been here before. I have nightmares that I am being told that I'm 15 years old. You cannot leave. Even though I'm like in my 30s, like I have children to get to. Too bad you can't go. You're a child. Just being held against your will, and that it was coming out and everything was going on like that. And I lost some friends when that COVID experience happened, because I was like kind of revolting against it. Like, I have to go outside. I have to be out. Like, I cannot stay in my house, because this is like, I'm going to be locked up again. I don't know. Maybe it
It's
was
also
a
not
bad reaction.
healthy. It's not healthy to just stay inside either. Like, it's not healthy for your mind. It's not healthy for your body. Like, there's natural vitamin D that you get from the sun. Like, there's certain chemical interactions that happen naturally with your body just from being outside. So
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And we lived in San Diego by the beach, and so I was having too many flashbacks that I ended up going to my family's vacation home in Havasu, and Arizona hadn't quite shut down like it did, like San Diego, California. So it was a nice refresher of being able to walk around and go outside, and helped me to realize that I wasn't going to be locked up. I wasn't going to be held against my will. I still had control of my body, of my family. And it was really tough, like going through life, being afraid that you're never going to look out the window again. Or like, even though I worked the program, every day I thought about escaping, every single day. Every time someone walked in the door, I hoped it was our therapist coming to get me because my dad showed up or my mom showed up. Like, every single time someone walked through the door, I was hoping that. And that just like does something to your brain when you're hoping you're going to be saved, and 2 years goes by and the only person who saved you was yourself. But it wasn't really being saved, because you erased your entire life prior.
yeah,
Like you were told that everything before the program was non-working, and you burnt pictures of you and your friends at the beach having fun because, oh, those girls, yeah, look at how they're dressed, they're sluts. And no, they're non-working. You pretty much have no friends. You're going to be starting over from scratch. And I don't know, what years were you at Spring Creek?
January 23rd, 2007 to December 28th, 2008. So I was there 22 months.
Yeah, same amount as me, but I was there just a year or two prior. So I had no idea Hurricane Katrina happened, and I was listening to another podcast where she was in 2001, and she didn't know 9/11 had happened.
Yeah, that would be mindfuck.
Yeah, like it was. So the school system at Cross Creek was just an epic joke. I don't know how Spring Creek was, if you guys had teachers, but it was pretty much just donated books that say 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and you just sit there, read the book, do the answer, do the quiz on the back, and then that's it. That's all the amount of learning that you did. And so by the time I was done with Cross Creek, I was not caught up to California standards. So I was a super senior. I had to go back to high school after everyone I knew had graduated. And so I was class of 06, but I graduated in 2007. And I remember just being so afraid to talk to anyone in the school. And this was right after I had gotten out. I had to finish some classes, and I was living with my stepdad in Temecula. And I wouldn't talk to anybody. During like lunch break, I would sit in the hallway, like to myself. And I wouldn't say I'm a nerdy person or like an outcast. And definitely, I always had a lot of friends, very social. So this was very unusual for me, and it's almost like shell shock thinking back on it.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't yet 18, and they tell you if you do anything outside of your life contract, you're coming back here. And there were quite a few retreads when I was in Cross Creek, and that's terrifying shit, getting sent back. And I don't know how anyone could ever do that to their child, but I missed a major point. I'm going to go back. I'm sorry. I'm just going. My memory is just spewing out. If you want to stop me, you can.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay. So back to explain. Right before I got to Cross Creek, remember I talked about I got really sick.
Yeah.
And no one really understood why, and I was being accused of using meth. And
I have a question about that. So did
yeah,
they effectively 5150 you to the hospital? Did you get an involuntary hold because of
I
how
think
you?
that's what it was, because it was 3 days like handcuffed to a bed in
Yep.
a hallway at St.
Yep.
Hospital.
That's involuntarily whatnot. That's okay. Interesting. All right, go on.
Yep, I didn't know that's what it was called. So when I remember it, I can't say, oh yeah, I was 5150, but yep, that's pretty much what it was.
Yeah.
So after I got to Cross Creek, I didn't get any better. I was still really sick. Not like flu symptoms, but not sleeping. My resting heart rate was like 120 beats per minute, and which is double what it should be when you're
Yeah.
resting. And then I started to get some more physical signs of illness where I wore a size 4 shirt and those blue button-up shirts, and you had to wear that funny little maroon striped collar bow tie. And I had to wear a size 12 shirt because my neck had swollen up so large that I couldn't wear a 4 anymore. And that was the first thing that happened. And then the muscles around my eyes started swelling up. And finally, someone thought, brilliant idea. We should maybe get this child a blood panel. Maybe there's something going on.
Yeah.
And so I've had these symptoms for almost 8 months, and no one thought to take my blood and test what was going on. They just threw the Seroquel, they threw the Paxil, they threw the Zyprexa, they 5150'd me. They pretty much tortured the living shit out of me emotionally, spiritually, like mentally, physically, and they couldn't get an answer. So the only thing they did is they send me to a school. And so a couple months after being there, I got a blood panel and I come back positive for Graves' disease. And it's an autoimmune disease where your body starts attacking your thyroid, and every symptom I was experiencing, like hair loss, extreme appetite, lack of interest in, like all kinds of crazy stuff, sporadic mood swings, and rapid weight loss, instant weight gain, like just all over the place. So this is like a pretty big deal, getting diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. People don't take that lightly. And it was no big deal while I was there. And I was told I am not a victim of my disease, and I am completely accountable for everything I've done. Everything in my life, every wrongdoing I've done, I am completely 100% accountable, and my disease, my autoimmune disease, did nothing. So they really belittled it, and it's created this effect where if there's something wrong with me, I don't even look at it. I don't acknowledge it. So it's really hard. Like, I might be really sick, but I'm going to ignore it because I am in.
The opposite of a hypochondriac.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's some pretty heavy shit going on with me, but I can't acknowledge it because then I would be a victim, and you're not allowed to be a victim. And that was really big language at Cross Creek, was victim. If you act like a victim, you might as well be a murderer, because you were just looking for attention. You were just looking for a cop out, some excuse to get out of being accountable and respectful. Um, and it was just psychological torture from the way that they pressured that on us. Like, I understand being accountable and owning up to things, but when you're actually like physically sick and you don't have any control over it, it might be time to involve parents. It might be time to let their family know that, we have your daughter here, and yeah, some like abnormalities popped up, but we've got it under control. She's seeing the general doctor. I should have been going to a specialist. I should have been seeing like an endocrinologist and getting help. So instead, I was in an orange shirt getting transported into St. George, into this very just gross office building, medical office building, and taking a radioactive pill. And they didn't even really give me an option, but they changed my life to where I have to take medication every single day for the rest of my life. I wasn't even given an option. It was, your thyroid's attacking itself. We have to give you radioactive iodine. I was 15 years old. I should have had my parents there. I should have had my grandmother there, who was paying for this fucking shit. And someone should have been there advocating for me, because they're like, okay, if we give you this radioactive iodine, you probably won't ever be able to have children. And being 15 years old, I'm just like, fuck it. Who would want to bring kids into this fucking bullshit? Like, this is a horrible, horrible world. And like, I wouldn't want to deal with that. So go ahead, give me the radioactive iodine. So for a year, I had a card that my staff would keep on their clipboard that said that I would set off metal detectors and that I shouldn't be around elderly or people with pacemakers. But it was okay for me to be in close quarters with all these other girls. And I'm sure their parents weren't aware of the radioaction that I was expelling from my body. Like, they, not only were they belittling something so important in my life, that they turned it into nothing, but they also put a lot of other kids in danger. And I just want to say, like, the medical treatment is the most fucked up thing that they have going on there. I mean, the doctor that did the pap smears, that got clear pleasure out of doing these inspections on all the girls. And I don't even remember it. I just blacked it out. And it was just a normal thing. I remember just him trying to pry my knees open, and then I don't remember anything after that. Yeah, sorry to give you like a visual there, but
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I don't, I think that there's so many stories that I hear from boys and girls, and the boys had a lot more physical, I think, and the girls, it was mental torture. And Ron Garrett would come into his group in the morning, and the sheer terror that he would cause is like, would give you diarrhea. Like, that much anxiety of him walking into a room would make your stomach twist if you had to go in and ask him, can I be off Hope Buddy? That was so terrifying. And he would just look at you. He's never looked at you before. He's never spoken to you before, but it was like speaking to God. You had to ask forgiveness and ask for your life to change. And he was like, yeah, it's cool. And it was no big deal to him, but we were made to fear him. And he was terrifying. And he would come into the room and he would sit down, spin the chair around, sit down all open-legged, leaning over the chair and looking at a girl that had just come in the night before, who's clearly just hungover, or she had just been transported and drugged. She's coming down off of drugs or something. And he'd be like, look at this fucking mess. Or like, oh, wow, you look like a little slut. You know, just so shaming and attacking that, like, it was a terrifying experience to try to be in Ron group. And then he would have his groupies. There was girls that were like Ron groupies that would sit right up in the front, sitting up all tall and straight with a smile on, while he verbally abused every other girl in there. And she would just be sitting there, good morning, Ron, how are you? And I think the amount of, like, there was some girls you would get close with, to where it felt like there was kind of a bond, a sisterhood, but no, everybody was waiting to stab you in the back. There was always someone waiting, either jealous of you moving up on your levels too quickly, or they didn't want to involve you in run plans. So, crazy story, we got called into a group. We would have group every day, and we were all sitting in a circle in our chairs. The therapist, Norm, walks in and he has a big handful of orange shirts and he throws them in the middle. This is terrifying. This means you've dropped, completely lost all your levels, all your points, dropped. And he says, if you want one, if you deserve one, pick one up. And I was not involved in this major group downfall. And it was shocking that so many girls that I thought were like my best friends, they were all in some type of like conspiracy. like, like there was some funny like run plans involved. There was this one girl who was in our group for a short period of time. She had come from a lot of money in Florida, and gave a lot of girls hope that she was going to get them out of there. She had strings she could pull. She had people she could call, and she had enough money to get everybody out. So I'm kind of bummed I wasn't involved in that, because I wish I would have been a little bit closer with those girls to be trusted with that information. I wouldn't have turned you in if you ever listened to this. I would have run with you. Absolutely. I would have kicked down any staff, taken on the big gypsy woman. I don't care. I would have ripped that magnetic card off anyone's neck and ran as hard as I could. But if anyone ever hears that. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that anybody else talks on, that I might have missed?
Okay, so I was just gonna ask you, how many times did it take you to get through each of your seminars?
First time.
First time, same here, except for principles. Did you get through principles the first time?
I did.
Oh,
did.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I didn't choose out of anything. And I have all of my hard handwritten, where I had a callus. I still have a callus on my ring finger. I'm left-handed from writing so much. So week 1 and 2 of journaling for focus, and you have to start out with your purpose and you put the date and you write from end to end of the paper. You don't just, write from that red line. It's side to side. You fill up the entire piece of paper. And you recall every situation that you've ever had in your life. You write yourself letters, and week 3, what your stretches are. And I wrote a lot. And I remember there was one time in focus that I faked cried. I completely imagined killing myself, and I made myself cry. And I said it was due to an incident that happened when I was 11 years old. I'm not going to touch on that right now, but and I think that's the only reason why I got through focus, is because I was able to turn on the water. And if you don't, then you will probably choose out. And I think that just imagining that saved my life. Imagining dying saved my life.
I
kind of ironic.
I got through all my seminars the first time, but I remember the very first seminar I went in. Well, let me just give some backstory. I rebelled for the first year that I was in Spring Creek, so I spent most of my time in between intervention and study hall. So by the time I decided to work my program, I was like, fuck this. I'm literally going to do anything that it takes to get through this. So I went into the first seminar, and I remember I just noticed that, like, well, people had told me, like, just participate. You want to get through it, participate. And so I was like, okay. And I was literally the first person in every single seminar to raise their hand and voluntarily just like be like, yeah, stand up in front of everybody and talk about all the shit that I've been through. Fortunately or unfortunately, really, in reality, for me, I have a lot of trauma in my fucking life. So it wasn't really as hard for me to actually, I didn't have to stretch, like, I didn't have to, like, do what you did or whatnot. But I did put my drama out on Front Street and just, like, just be the first person, because I saw what was happening. I was like, if you don't speak up and participate, they're either going to point on you and make you share, or you're just going to get chosen out. Or if you don't, like, or you got to cry. You got to, like, show them that you're, like, doing something. Like you said, like, you got to cry, or you just got to have a bunch of trauma in your life, unfortunately. Like, and for me, I did have a lot of trauma, and unfortunately, but yeah, that's pretty much why I got through them. But I remember, did you end up staffing any seminars?
I did, actually. I'm looking at, how they would use those big boards and write with the markers up and, write down words. Raise your hand when you think of a positive word: compassion, responsibility. And they'd write it down and get you all excited, that get you all high on the seminar bullshit.
Yeah.
And then I remember the staffer, they would rip up those big posters after, and you could save one of the words.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like,
I
I have
have some. I have some too.
Yep. I have one that says supporting. Woo. It says fucking supporting. Like, I can't imagine, like, I cannot believe that there was one point in my life I had drinking Kool-Aid so hard that I was ripping apart a piece of paper with some random facilitator's handwriting that says supporting, and I saved it. It's 2023. This was from 2005, and I still have it. This is, if there's not, like, I should be saving pictures of love notes or like notes that my friends have written me. Like, I have trauma of crazy people that have told me that everything bad in my life is my fault and I have to fix it.
Yeah, I have a huge binder, a huge fat binder full of all of this stuff from Spring Creek. And then I have 2 additional binders, one from letters that I wrote my parents, and then one from letters that my parents wrote me. And so I have all I have all of that stuff. And I have, I'm curious, did you graduate?
I did.
Okay. Did they give you a fucking granite slab or something that had your I am statement on it when you graduated?
No, I got a laminated card with SpongeBob stickers.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, they did a fucking granite slab but mine was hella different because I was the last person to graduate from Spring Creek before it was shut down. I was officially the last person. What?
Are you serious? You were the last person to grad, and then they shut it down?
Yeah, it shut down after I graduated. Yeah. I graduated with one other person named Pat Garvey, but that's it.
Wow. So that was 2008, you said?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know why they closed it?
It was several lawsuits. One being, I mean, there was a girl that killed herself. She hung herself in the girls' bathroom, I think. I could be wrong about that.
Wow.
But that was before I got there. But yeah, they shut down due to a bunch of lawsuits. And it just got essentially to be too many lawsuits, I guess. And they just shut down. Now it's like a fucking Airbnb. And fucking, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's haunting to think that people are sleeping in those rooms.
Yeah, if only they knew. I kind of just want to go up there and be like, hey, you guys, you want to know what's really happened here? Like,
yeah. All children's
like,
lives were destroyed in these. Children's souls were brutally beaten and robbed in these rooms.
dude, I wonder how charged that seminar room still is with energy. Dude, there's gotta be, like, just I mean, because literally they do all the release processes in there of everybody that's ever been there. Like, there's gotta be some fucking dark, like, crazy, strong energy down there.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't be surprised.
From the very first, what is based on the beginning song of the seminar, dun 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 dun.
Yeah. 2001.
Where you have to, it's like,
yep.
You have to get into your chair music. Oh my gosh. And then all the way to the very end when they play Footloose and you're just supposed to be so proud of yourself that you made it through.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Yeah, they do.
Oh my. Yeah.
There's so much shit that I like blacked out. And then when somebody brings it up, I like remember it. And I'm like, holy fucking shit.
Yep. And I was looking through my binder just now and found my lovely letter that I wrote to my parents of my sexual inventory, because at 15 years old, you should be telling your parents about every detail of your exploration life prior.
I feel like that was
which
grooming. I feel like that's grooming.
Absolutely. It's disgusting. Like, I should have never, ever had to divulge that information to my family. My dad is probably so disgusted, and that's probably why he doesn't even want to talk to me. Like, I had to share information that they don't want. Like,
yeah.
Yes, I did stuff a 15-year-old girl probably should not have done. Was it kind of normal? Absolutely. Should I be telling my entire family about it? No.
Yeah.
No, they shouldn't know what led up to it. They shouldn't know what I was wearing. They shouldn't know what I was doing after, my thoughts about it, or whether I liked it or not. Like, that is irrelevant information and completely disgusting.
Yeah.
And if my daughter ever felt like she was forced to tell me this information, I'd be like, sweetheart, please stop. Like, let's get down to like something different. You know, we don't need to get into the graphic details. It's unnecessary.
Yeah. Did they make you write or your parents write a letter as if you died at or first of all, did they do a Trail of Lights ceremony for graduation at your facility?
I do not recall a Trail of Lights. They did have the lifeboat where you stand in front of someone who doesn't know you, and they just firmly say you die, and they don't even know you. And you're just like, okay, yeah, you're just saying this. Okay. It made no sense to me. Is that something similar?
Yeah, okay. No. Lifeboat is just a process and focus, but Trail of Lights, I'm starting to find that maybe Spring Creek Lodge was the only facility that ever did Trail of Lights. But Trail of Lights was literally like the last like process, if you want to call it, that you did before you graduated. And essentially, you were blindfolded at the beginning of the day, and I did it with one other person. Usually it's a group of people, and back in the day, they would have people blindfolded. So what would happen is you'd have you'd stand in a line and have your arms on the person's shoulder in front of you, and you'd be walking in the line, and you'd have one of the staff members start yelling out, "Hey, over this way," and you have to follow their voice. And back before my time, they would have them follow their voice up a mountain. They'd have to hike up a mountain and then hike back down, and then at the end of the day, they would do the Trail of Lights, which I'll get to in a second. But during my time, it was with one other person, and they just had us follow by sound around the facility. They had us clean with blindfolds on, like sweep around the facility with blindfolds on. It's a whole day process. And then there's this one part where they bring you into this room, and they have your parents write these letters as if you died, like, and you have to read them out loud and shit. and it's supposed to be you dying and being reborn. And then you go into the Trail of Lights, which is where you're still blindfolded, and then you get to pick. It's the only time you get to pick a song, and mine was Vitamin C, the graduation song. And I fucking you like put your arms over your chest, and then you fall back, and then you lift it up and crowd surf down the line of everybody at the facility because they line up and they crowd surf you down to the end, and then you get down, they let you down, and then everybody comes around you and whispers in your ear how you've inspired their program or helped them through hard times. And I helped a lot of people. Like I was like, I did not put up with bullies, and I fucking, because I got picked on in the program, so I like looked out for a lot of people and would consequence the bullies instead. And just like I felt like I was a protector sort of in the program, in a good way. Used my powers for good, but yeah, that was the Trail of Lights, and I'm starting to think that maybe Spring Creek Lodge was the only place that did that process.
So part of that sounded familiar, and I think it was in a focus stretch. Maybe the last day of focus.
Yeah.
Because I do remember there was some type of a trust fall with your small group. Okay. Well,
it's the same kind of thing.
I don't know about graduation.
What was that?
Yeah, I said I don't know about graduation, but I think that was in focus. It was something very similar.
Yeah, did they play a song like by Ready to Fly when you did that, and then they lifted you up and I'm ready to fly, and then you'd like lift up?
Oh my God, it's back to me now. Yes.
That was
and
the
it
song?
was terrifying. Okay.
So,
yeah.
So it was that, except for you got crowd surfed. It was like that one with an extension, because you got crowd surfed. Everybody on the facility lined up, and it was really, that was literally like the most magical, like inspiring. Like I cried my eyes out when I fucking that process, like that whole day. Like I just fucking I did it. I finally graduated. Like I fucking was an inspiration to so many people, and I just fucking I was really fucking just, and I knew the fucking place was gonna shut down, so I knew like all these people were gonna be free and shit. So I was kind of crying for that too. So, cause like I was the two people graduating, like we found out the fucking facility was gonna shut down, but they're like, if you say anything, you'll get a fucking cat 5, like or whatever. So, but I was graduating anyways. Wow. I already knew that they were gonna be able to be free, but. Yeah, it's fucking. I forgot about that process in Focus. Yes, they do a version of that in Focus at the very end. That was crazy.
Okay.
But,
yeah. I wasn't too excited about that.
Yeah. What did you did you live or die in the lifeboat?
I honestly don't remember. All I could really remember is feeling like you had to say die to more people to get through the whatever, the exercise. So if you said live too many times and the facilitators notice that, and I was trying to, I guess this is how manipulative I am. I'm just watching everybody and seeing reactions from the facilitators on the people that are saying live too often. And they're like, oh, they're just letting people slide. They're letting their bullshit go down. No, you have to be hard on people. You have to call them out on their bullshit and tell them to die. So that's kind of what I did. I was probably somebody's major trigger on their life and didn't contribute to their, I don't know, their whatever word I'm looking for. But no, I do not remember if I voted live or die. But I do remember my obituary that I had to write, and that's disgusting.
When did they have you write that? That sounds super familiar to like what they had us read out loud at fucking the Trail of Lights. Like, you had to write it like as if you died or something?
Yeah, so it was Here Lies Katie.
Okay, that's
she was the most she's the most obnoxious girl in the room. Everyone hated her. she was manipulative and evil, and that whole bit. But it's, they're trying to get everything to kill off that bad side of you instead of having you embrace that person and forgiving that person. They want to kill that part of you and make you forget it, and that it was absolutely not working, and make you ashamed of every mistake that you made. And I'm understanding now that that is not how it's supposed to be, because now I'm just afraid to make it.
Go ahead.
Sorry, repeat that. Sorry about the glitchiness.
I just thought you were still talking. I was gonna say, yeah, you have to blend the fucking water with the fire. Like, you have to blend the two. Like, you have to blend dark and light. Like, you have to just blend them together. You can't just you can't repress one side, because that's how you become possessed by the other. Like,
Yeah.
Like, literally, like.
Yep.
You have to. So yeah, that's very interesting way to look at it. I never thought of it that way, but I definitely agree with you on that. Did you?
Yeah, it was.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
No. Go ahead. I want to say.
I was just gonna move on to the next subject. So, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna reiterate on how attacking they were on the psyche, and being fake. I think on the girl side was really strong, and like from the day that you get there, of me trying to be a positive and not resist and just try to be nice, and there's other girls there. I'm not gonna die. Clearly, I'm with a bunch of other teenage girls. It wasn't that bad. And because I wasn't completely sad and withdrawn, I girls in my group would just come up to me and just be like, I think you're full of crap. Like, that was their favorite word, was crap. You're full of crap. Like, that was on repeat for at least the first 3 months I was there.
I made a mistake somebody asked me what my favorite cigarette was, and I had trouble fitting in growing up, and I had like one friend up till 6th grade, so I just wanted everybody to like me, and so they asked me what kind of cigarette was my favorite, and they're like, is it Camel 69s? And those cigarettes don't exist. And of course I said, yeah, those are the ones. And so they caught me in a fucking small ass lie, and so I had to I got fucking made fun of for like months after that. Like, it took me like months of actually trying to work my program, or for lack of a better word, for people to actually, even talk to me. I was shunned. They were like, if he's gonna lie about that, what else is he gonna lie about? You can't trust him. So.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I can't believe you were able to talk about cigarettes. That would be glorification, and we'd get a category 3 for that, at least, for even speaking any positive light or anything about cigarettes or drugs or anything like that.
Oh yeah, they could have gotten into trouble. They just didn't care. I think it was my first night there, but they were just asking me questions. I don't even know. I think when I got there was a lot of changes going on, but that my first night there is really blurry. I remember vaguely that night. I just remember being in shock.
Were you able to eat?
Yeah, I think I was able to eat. I can't really remember, but I know I was in shock.
That was one of my memories. Is I tried to eat, but I couldn't. My stomach was just shut down so hard.
How was the food there? I know it's obviously not going to be the best food in the world, but there was some stuff that I actually sort of looked forward to in a way at Spring Creek. The burritos were okay. The breakfast burritos were fucking fire. And the pizza boats were okay. Pizza boats were okay. You did that in the applesauce.
Applesauce, yeah. I think the best thing they served was probably the strawberry cream cheese on bagel morning.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say bagels were like Wednesday. We had oatmeal on Thursdays. And I want to say it was Thursday because M Group had kitchen duty on Thursday. And when you worked the kitchen, you got double servings.
I
So
love working.
that was a big. There is somebody at my gate. Sorry, I live in the country, so someone pulling up to my house is kind of weird.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Um, yeah. Oh, it's Amazon. Lovely. Never mind.
Okay, cool.
Not in a van. They're in a car. Right? Um, sorry, I got distracted there.
Oh, you're good.
Let's see. The dinners were awful. The food was never good. It was really all about the breakfast. And the girls, if they were vegetarian, I just felt so sorry for them because they would get this plastic looking meat. And it was always some type of mystery. And then the eggs, we called them SpongeBob SquarePants eggs because they were literally square with holes in them. They
What?
look like SpongeBob.
Oh shit!
Yes, they would
They're
pour.
like patty eggs, like the patty ones, right?
Yeah, so they would pour this big like gallons of egg yolk or whatever it was pre-made in a gallon into this giant container that was probably 3 inches deep,
Oh my
like
god! Yeah.
18 by 10, 3 inches deep, and bake the eggs and then just cut them out in squares. And it was just disgusting. You had to cover everything in ketchup for it to be edible.
Dan, did you guys get condiments on level 1, or did you have to earn them?
I don't remember, but I think that you were given like 1 or 2 packets of ketchup,
I remember
maybe.
that's how it was when I got there. But before I got there, you had to earn your condiments. Unless I'm like super
Mm.
mistaken on that, and I just like black that out. There's a lot of things about my experience there that I just weirdly it's just like black them out.
Yeah.
Did
Well,
you
level 1, 2, 3, there wasn't much difference. So you couldn't really tell if someone was on level 1, 2, and 3. Level 1, obviously, if you just get there or you're on staff buddy, which means you're in serious shit, you'd be wearing an orange t-shirt, you'd be wearing slippers or shoes with no laces, no hair tie. Level 2, it looked the same, just a blue shirt. Level 3, the same. And then level 4, you can tell is because you can now wear jewelry, like either little studs or a necklace. And then level 5, you get the long tie instead of the bow tie. Same with level 6. And then I think level 6, you can actually like paint your nails like clear or something like that. I never did it. It was pointless. I mean, you weren't allowed to shave. So you got like 2 inches of peach fuzz growing out of your armpits. Like why would you give a shit about nail polish?
It's so crazy. It's
Oh,
just
it
like
was fun.
you just look for the beauty within, which I understand, but it's like, yeah, I got fucking hair out to here. It's like, what the fuck? Like, come on now.
Yeah. And I see when my husband shaves his face a lot, it gets really irritated. So I can't even imagine the boys needing, I mean, obviously some of the boys didn't really grow facial hair yet, but the boys that did, like how irritating was that for your skin to constantly have to be clean on your face?
Yeah, it caused a lot of acne. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah, and that was the other thing. Like I would see other girls. There was this other girl, and I think she was group E, and she was beautiful. She was so gorgeous. And then somewhere, I don't know what caused it, but she got an infection on her face. Like I don't know if it was a pimple, but it turned into like a scary infection that probably needed to go to a doctor. And you just have to walk around in shame, being mistreated and ignored with something so serious that she could have had staph infection or something. Like she could have a serious scar there now, and they just don't care. It doesn't matter. They're getting their $5,000 a month and they don't care.
All they care about is money.
Yeah. Yeah. And so my grandmother, my Nana, she paid for it. And I
she died about 5 years ago from cancer. And after I got out of the program, I went to live with her when I turned 18, and she lived right up the street from SeaWorld. So that was my first job. And I really wanted to show her that I had changed and that I was, perfect granddaughter and I did everything right. And as time went on, I started to break out of that life contract little by little. And, she'd bring it up and she'd be like, do you ever think about the program? Do you think it did you good? And I was starting to realize that it was awful. But I'd never wanted to say it to her because I felt bad. I didn't want her to think that she had wasted almost, I don't know, what's 5 times 22? Over $100,000. I didn't want her to think that she put all of that down the drain. But my dad, he likes to claim that that was his inheritance money and that he paid for it and he sacrificed his money to save my life. Classic narcissistic line right there. Yeah. So I always wanted to tell my Nana, and even though she's dead, I try to talk to her now and be like, it was not good. It was not good what happened. And after I had gotten out, she took me to see like an actual thyroid doctor, like the best endocrinologist in San Diego, Dr. Daniel Einhorn, and I can't even get in to see him now. Like he's so like sought after for endocrinology. And I remember the first visit I told him, he's like, they gave you radioactive iodine after being diagnosed like weeks before. And I'm like, yeah, they didn't really give me an option. And he's like, well, tell me about your symptoms. So I told him everything. And I'll never forget what he said to me. He's like, well, if they would have caught this earlier, you might have not have needed to go to that place. And like those words like haunt me every single day. Like it could have been avoided. That 2 years of fucking hell could have been avoided with a blood test. Like that's all, folks. Like your kid's in trouble, go take them to a doctor or get a blood panel or something. Get them on some healthier food. Like get them out in the sun, get them out of their environment, connect with them. Sit down with them and be real and be honest and stop blaming your children for everything that's going wrong in their lives. Like how out of control were you, like just emotionally when you're 15? Like you can't, it's hard to even like understand the bigger picture of life. You're so consumed in your daily, like, oh, I wonder who I'm going to eat with at lunch, or oh yeah, so and so's dating so and so. Like it's such a small world that teenagers live in. And then to just rip them out of their home, put them in a place where they're attacked, brainwashed, kicked around, just completely humiliated for years, and, and neglected by their family, ignored by their family, and then to expect them to be thriving adults. Like I don't see how any parent that wasn't manipulated could think that's a positive thing.
Yeah. It's my belief that like at least 90% of the parents were manipulated, but there is a good like 10%, maybe more, I could be wrong, but in my estimate it should be roughly that. There's just
Well,
like,
my mom's apologized. She feels very bad. She knew it was wrong, but she was so consumed in her own life. She had gone through a divorce. She was with a new man. She had gotten pregnant. She showed up for PC1 8 months pregnant and blew my mind. She hadn't even told me. So I have a little brother that's just graduated high school. He's about to be 18. And I'm like, dude, I remember when mom walked into PC1 and she was about to have a baby. Like she didn't even tell me. In letters, on phone calls, nothing. So that just blows my mind how disconnected and forgotten you are when you're sent away. They literally go on with life without you. You died. and then you have to come back in as this perfect person, not screw up, not speak to anybody, and be okay with that, be completely normal.
Pretty much.
My little sister's 26, 27 years old, and so she was, I don't know, 12, 10, 11, 12 or something when I got out. And she's like, I just remember you were so weird, like you were always singing. And I would sing the songs we would have to listen to on like Sundays. They would play music sometimes in the cafeteria on Sunday. And ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low, that whole shit. And to get you all pumped up and kind of, I don't know, it was very manipulative. So I would sing those songs when I got out if I felt scared. And I also questioned whether I should join the Mormon church right after I left, because I was feeling very lost and alone. And there was a Mormon church right down the street in Pacific Beach where my Nana lived. And I talked to her one morning. I was like, I'm thinking of going and checking out this church. What do you think about that? And she's a Protestant, so she kind of looked at me like, I don't know, you do whatever you want. Like they don't really have a lot of opinions. So I never did it, but I do remember like feeling so lost that I was searching for Cross Creek. I was looking for any way to send myself back because I was afraid of life. So whether it was going to be through Mormonism to keep me in line, to make me still live in fear, or I don't know. The other thing that I did was I faked AA throughout Cross Creek. Like I was involved in, their Alcoholics Anonymous. I am not an addict, but it was I don't know, like a notch in the belt, like to be like, yep, I'm an addict. Like what 15-year-old knows they're an addict? I mean, maybe a lot of people are, but like that's so young in life to be such a very strong thing. I could be wrong. But that was one of the other things that I was involved in to appease my parents, to make them feel like I was doing something good with my life. Just very strange of me. Yeah. Okay. One last thing. My mom just told me a couple months ago that they emailed her about the first couple months I was there that I was combative and aggressive towards staff. And I wasn't. Like I was very cooperative. And so they didn't just manipulate, but they lied. They lied. If they tell your parents, yeah, she is not working the program, she's fighting it, she's been aggressive with students, her classmates are afraid of her. Like my mom told me that's what they would email her like weekly. And what's astonishing is the family rep, Carla, is this sweet older woman. So I cannot imagine her lying to my mother and saying these things when I was none of them. But that's how deep the manipulation goes to keep their status of money coming in. They will say anything they can.
Yep, including monitoring your phone calls. I was going to ask you, did you ever end up in intervention or spend any time in intervention or solitary confinement? Was there something like that at Cross Creek?
Absolutely there was, and no, I did not. That we called it heaven. The girls would go up to heaven. I have heard horror stories of intervention. Girls that went up there, and if they were on their period, they were writing on the wall because they wouldn't give them sanitary napkins or anything like that. And it was some gruesome stuff, like girls that were left in there for hours or days. And it was for pretty stupid stuff, but they would have guys sitting on girls. I've never seen them inject anything, even though I've seen that in like movies where they give you the juice or something. I never saw that. But yeah, if some girls were combative towards staff, they definitely take them up to intervention. Usually they'd be up there for 2 or 3 days, and then they'd come back as a staff buddy, and they looked like a broken horse after that. Their head would hang low, they'd be quiet, they were no longer have any life left in their body. It was almost like they were beaten in there, but you never really knew.
Yeah. Okay. And you graduated. How long total were you there?
From September 11th, 2004 until later June 2006. So about 22 months.
Okay. And let's see. If you could go back
I
in
don't
time,
think I went.
or go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say I think I missed the first orientation. There was an orientation going on the first weekend I was there, and I wasn't I hadn't been there long enough. And it was like in the old seminar room where it was like this very carpeted, very tiny carpeted stadium looking facility. And then they had finished the construction on the new cafeteria and the new seminar room that was above the cafeteria. If you remember coming to Cross Creek, that's probably where you had the seminar. It was this giant upstairs room.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I did my station. So
Okay.
I was there probably 4 or 5 months before I went to orientation.
Okay. Do you remember how many people about were around the facility if you had to make an estimate when you got there?
Yeah, I would say, man, there was A, B, C, D, E, F, H, K, L, M group when I first got there, about 20 girls in each. And then by the time I was leaving, they had made J group, they made G group, and there was a lot of girls coming in. So I'd say the facility grew from like 200 to 300 by the time from 04 to 06. It was popping. There was so many girls there. There was even a girl there that I knew, like from childhood. We weren't friends, but I knew her. And there was girls there that had their sister there. They weren't even allowed to acknowledge their little sister. They'd walk by them in the hall face down, no acknowledgement. They weren't even allowed to talk about them. They couldn't acknowledge that. It was so sad to see that. Like this one girl, she was one of my good friends while we were there, and her little sister was sent in there after their mom had passed away. And I just can't imagine the manipulation they pulled on this widow, this man, after his wife passes. I think they were divorced, but still, to send both of his daughters to a place like this. Like they're parents are so desperate.
Yeah, and it's really fucked up. They take advantage of that desperation.
Yeah, as an adult, I have a lot of friends that do retreats, and they go to Costa Rica for 4 days and do this wonderful self-improving retreat, or they go to Sedona and do all this stuff. But what about like these teen years where you can go on a retreat with your kid or something? Like can't we have something like that where, say, I'm a mom and my daughter turns like 12, 13, and I start to see her like kind of lose interest in stuff that we're doing as a family, and I'm losing like a connection with her. Like, why can't we just go on like a 4 or 5 day retreat and just get that connection back so that we don't lose that? Because I think that's all that matters, is like having trust and the ability to be vulnerable with things that are going on in our life and just speak to one another. So, and that is basically what everybody was lacking. Like you didn't have support. I don't know. I'm just thinking now.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. Let's see. What do you think the hardest part about being in the program was for you, and how did you deal with it?
The hardest part was not getting picked up. I wasn't promised. My mom would tell me in letters every day that, well, she didn't write me every day, but every, like, maybe once a week, I'm not coming to get you. You have to work your program. You have to go to focus. And it's so weird because I was never resistant. So when she would send me these kinds of letters, I was just like, what the fuck is she talking about? Like, I am working this fucking program. Like, I'm doing the very best I can. And even though I was doing the best I can and they were telling her I wasn't, I was still hoping that, like, I'm praying to God, please, any minute, like, if I could manifest and see one of my parents coming to get me. Like, it got to the point where I would dream about it, and I almost got in a shit ton of trouble one night because I would sleepwalk and I was standing at the window. And I remember the dream I was having. My dad was sitting in a parking lot in his truck and he was waving to me like, I'm about to come up and get you. And the staff walked into the room, and you're not allowed to get out of bed without asking there. Like, you can't use the bathroom without asking, or you're going to get a run plan. So I think the way that I dealt with it was I read Harry Potter books. That was really it. That's the only way I got through. I was at Hogwarts. I was learning fucking witch and wizardry in Laverkin, Utah. And I pretended I had a cape and I was walking through the snow and I had an imaginary friend that's an owl. Like, I was losing my mind.
Understandably.
Yep.
Understandably.
Harry Potter.
Okay. Okay. Did you ever notice, or did you ever see anybody try to run? Did they say anything that what they did to runners? Because I know at Spring Creek they said what happens in the woods stays in the woods, and if you run, we will get you and we'll tackle you. Like nothing good happens to runners. So did they like scare you guys with about running or?
It was an unspoken fear for sure. But no, there was a girl that did successfully get out. I want to say her name was Emily. And I looked up to her like no other. She wasn't there long. I want to say they sent her to Jamaica, or Casa by the sea. I don't know, one of those. She was only there for maybe a couple of months, and she was a wild horse, and she was not going to be broken. And I remember she got out. She must have grabbed a key card or something. And I was sitting in worksheets when they brought her back, and she had her feet, she had no shoes on. She was just sitting there in the chair in orange, and her feet had cactus splinters all over them. And I just remember like looking down and being like, oh girl, like, props. You probably went through shit to try to get away from this. Like, it's in the middle of the desert. There's a little town, like, it's a very podunk little town, and anyone, the whole town knows what the uniforms look like, and you're a pariah no matter what. So you go outside, no one's going to help you. They're going to call the facility and be like, hey, one of your cattle got out. They're not going to be like, oh, are you looking for something to eat, little girl? Do you need a ride? Even though it was like 2 hours northeast of Vegas, you got to go through the middle of the desert before you get anywhere. So that was just the one girl that happened with. But there were some other desperate girls. I remember we had to do room inventories once a month to count how many shampoos you had, either Suave or VO5, how many deodorants, et cetera, et cetera. And you weren't really ever allowed to have anything from home except for like glasses. And there was this one girl in my group. She had bitten off the end of her glasses, and like the plastic part where it goes over your ear, and it was like a sharp metal poker. And that's like pretty sad about the self-harming, the lengths the girls would go to try and cope with the things that, you know, they were struggling with, that they were resorting to like prison shanks, you know what I mean? Just making them out of whatever they could. Those are some of the things that really stand out to me, some of what I've seen in the facility.
Okay. Yeah, I actually tried to kill myself in the program. I fucking took one of the lanyard or the metal pieces on the, you know how they have lanyards and they have the metal piece that connects to the fucking name tag. I took the metal piece off and I bent it backwards, and then I was like cutting my fucking, I still have the fucking scars from it, and I fucking cut pretty fucking deep with that shit, and then I got fucking caught. And then they fucking gave me a self-inflict, and they sent me right to fucking intervention. And I was there. I think that was the day. I think that was the time that I fucking was there 3 days. They kept me there 3 days.
Wow.
Because I tried to kill myself. And yeah, there was that. But so yeah.
Yeah, that's heavy. Not too many girls I would see doing it there. But I would say there's been a few times that I've considered it, but it was post-program where, you know, it was just, I wasn't mending with reality very well. And I wasn't like coping with my family. And yeah, there's been times where it's like, you know, what's the point? Like, you know, there might be another life, and let's just get a do-over.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
Excuse me. I was gonna say, let's talk about after the program, like after you get home. What did you struggle with the most because of the program, and how have you dealt with it? And just like go over like what you did after the program, and like if there's anything significant that happened to you after the program that you want to share.
Okay. Well, I had to finish high school, so I was a super senior. Going to school in a new place with people I don't know. I was very socially awkward and isolated myself, and, you know, still struggled with the family dynamic of having a dad with a new stepmom. And right after the program, I went to live with my mom's ex-husband, my ex-stepdad, to make that any more weird. But he was one of the most supportive people throughout my entire life, pretty much from when I was 3 until he went through all the seminars. He wasn't even married to my mom, and he went through the seminars. Like, it showed a lot of dedication. We're not that close anymore, just because, I don't know, I'm a grown up now, but still, you know, you still need that support. So I wish it was better. And then after I finished high school, I moved down to San Diego to live with my grandmother, and got a job and got a boyfriend and moved out and got my own place when I was 18. And I worked as a nanny for a lot of years, and I've noticed a pattern of doing things very slowly. I don't progress quickly. For example, I didn't move in with my now husband until we were dating for a year, and I didn't want to get married until it was like 3 or 4 years of dating. And I was a nanny for 10 years, and I could have had a much better job. And I was offered like in the industry that my grandfather is in, and I just didn't see myself as an adult. So I stayed with the kids because that's where I felt most comfortable, and that's where I had the most control. And that's the hardest part, I would say, is trying to be an adult in an adult world when you don't feel like an adult. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. If you could go back in time, and not go through this program, would you do it and why?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would have never gone. Ever. Ever. If I was my own parent, I would have given my daughter a fucking blood test. And I would have helped her. Um, there was actually one point when I was in my early 20s that I wanted to go back to school and become an endocrinologist and go out there and stop other parents from torturing their teenagers because they had like autoimmune diseases and they didn't know.
Yeah.
Like it was very it was before the troubled teen industry, all the drama got out there. So I was in shock and disbelief when Paris Hilton came out and did her documentary. Like I didn't know how bad it was because they silence you. They tell you that everything is your fault. And for her to come out and say we were just children, this is not our fault, we were abused, was, I don't know, it was eye-opening. When was it a realization for you that it was really a fucked up situation?
Mm. I think I've always kind of known, but I think, that's a hard question. I don't really know exactly when, but I've always kind of known in the back of my mind that it was never really like right. Like, yeah, there was, because I graduated, yeah, you got to see certain aspects of the program, or at least I did, that I actually found kind of valuable. Like, but then with it, all the fucking torture and all of that, and most people don't even get to see anything like on the upper levels. I just developed a lot of really, really fucking close relationships with people, especially on the upper levels, and it was just fuck. I forgot the fucking question. What was the question?
I don't know. I got sidetracked too. I actually just started thinking about after I got out of the program, there was a girl that was in my group that was also from San Diego, and her and I got really close. Like we lived about 45 minutes from each other, and we don't talk anymore, but I think we were both in the brainwashed stage of trying to be good adults when we were friends. And eventually she broke out of her brainwash coma before I did. And I think that's what tore up our friendship, because I was like, whoa, she's being hardcore like person right now. And I was still living in like, I have to be a good person and everything is my fault land, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, I hope she's out there pretty good. But I only talk to maybe one other girl occasionally here, like on Instagram every now and then. And we have similar values and views about some things. So that's nice. But yeah, there's other people that I thought I would be friends with forever. And no way. I don't talk to anyone.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that have passed away that from a lot of these schools, but at
Yeah.
Spring Campus, in particular, a lot of people that I knew have passed away either due to drug addiction or other things that happen. I'm lucky that I smoke weed and I'm on methadone, but I am 2 years and 7 months off meth and heroin. I mean, I did that for like 10 years, and it probably should have killed me multiple times. I probably shouldn't be here right now, honestly. Like I should have been a statistic, but I wasn't, and I'm alive, and I'm still here. And so when I got sober, I just wanted to do something meaningful and like important. So I just made this podcast and just give people a voice, do something positive. I feel like if anybody's gonna do it, it should be me, because I've been to fucking hell and back like more times, like at least 3 times.
Yeah.
Like
Wow. Yeah, I really appreciate this call, because there's so much of my family that's like, oh, you're going to do that, like, why are you still talking about it? You just need to give it up. And then I have the religious side, so like, just give it to God, like, which I don't really know what that means, give it to God. Like, there I don't know. Maybe I should research that. I don't know. But I was really, really nervous about talking to you today. And for the past week, I've been like writing down bullet points, and like, we were scheduled for earlier time, and I messed that up. And I was like, maybe it's a sign I shouldn't say something. Maybe I should just keep it quiet. But I think that there's been so many years of my life of me just being very misunderstood, and where I just want to tell people all about like being in Cross Creek and what I went through after, just trying to cope with reality and living with a narcissistic father and just a dysfunctional home. Everything, I want to share everything with everybody, because I just want them to understand why I'm weird, because I am weird. I either talk too much or I don't say anything at all. I'm really judgmental or I'm really relaxed. Like, there's no middle ground with me. And I'm always thinking, like, I wish I could just tell you everything you would understand. But I don't know. I really appreciate coming on and talking about all this stuff and reminiscing and hearing your story too. And we're so like kind of right there in the same time era, with 22 months in and graduating and gone through the seminars. And I think Cross Creek and Spring Creek were like sister programs.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are.
And yeah, and I'm so glad they're shut down. And when I found out that they were shut down, I so wanted to call my dad and be like, you see this? It's gone. It's gone now. Like, I want to flood him with testimonials. I wish that one day he would listen to this, but I know he won't. Like, there's so many people out there that have asked me or treated me differently because I went there. Family members that I'm the pariah because I was at a program, a boarding school, and just the judgment from family and other people that heard about what I went through from family members. Like, I wish I could just take it all back and have never gone.
No, I totally understand. I do have some more questions for you. If you still have time, do you still have time?
Yep.
Oh,
My
cool.
kids went to the beach to drive RC cars, so we're good.
Okay, cool. Have you talked to your parents, or you went over that a little bit with your dad? Have you tried talking to your mom? I can't remember if you answered that question or not. If you did, I apologize. But
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
tried to tell your parents and like where you are with your parents nowadays.
So my mom and I are pretty close. It took a couple years for us to establish like a good boundary. Because like I said, the night before she dropped me off there, we were partying in Vegas. She was like kind of like a non-working friend in a way. And there was some issues of kind of physical and emotional abuse when I was a kid. And there was some rough spots. It was really bad with my mom at one point, but I'd say we're in a really good spot. And she cares a lot about my kids and wants to be a good grandma. So she was actually here this last weekend and built my kids a tire swing. And, she's trying to make up for it, I think. So I appreciate her effort. And my dad, I don't know how familiar you are with narcissistic people, but they're like, I don't know if they have a goal. um, it's been ever since the program it hasn't been good. He's met my son once when he was a baby and has showed no interest in my life unless I fixed their problems, and I don't know what that is. So there's not much I could do. And there was actually one point where we were kind of talking on the phone here and there, and he just wanted to tell me that he had hired a private investigator to find his birth family, and turned out they were in San Diego, and he was so excited to tell me all about them. And I had an aunt, he had a younger sister who was the same age as me, and I guess she's like this famous artist. And so I researched her, and I'm like, oh wow, like her paintings are beautiful. And I tried to reach out to her. And my real grandma, she's a part of like SRF, which is like this self-realization fellowship in Encinitas. It's this beautiful temple and gardens and grounds and very hippie, but that's, if you know San Diego, Encinitas is all about that. And so I was really excited, like reaching out to them, like I got to meet them. And an aunt I had was in the same mom group. Like we were meant to be, you know. I was like, wow, like I have a family, a real like birth family. And then my dad turned around and told me, I don't want you to contact me until I'm ready to let you contact them. Like he was all about it, telling me who they were, excited. And then he was like, don't talk to them, which was super weird, confusing for me. And then one of the aunts that's in the same mom group as me, she told me that my dad was telling them that I'm a psychopath, and that I was going to be after their money, and I'm a witch, and that this grandmother that I could have had is terrified of me. And I tried to explain, like, this is not true, any of it. Like, I'm friends with you on all social media platforms. You see that I'm not, like, you don't even know my dad. And she's like, well, I don't know. We don't really want the drama. And it was really heartbreaking, just experiencing that, where I could have had a family, and my dad kind of spits those lies out there that that's the kind of person I am, and that there's actually people that are my family and that they're afraid of me. It's really heartbreaking. So that's where I'm at with my dad. He's still in Vegas. He drives a boat on Lake Henderson, which is like a little tiny like off lake of Lake Mead.
Okay.
And we've been served in LA as like a diver. So I don't know, I don't know. He's an interesting guy. He's very charismatic and really fun, and Uncle Mikey, and has a lot of personality. But I'm definitely like where all the negative gets spit to.
Yeah.
And he's very proud of me going through the program. Yeah, because all his inheritance money was used to pay for it. So he had to put his mentally demented daughter, to save her life. There's a lot of sarcasm right there, if you can't tell.
Oh yeah. Yeah. How are you these days? How are you since the program?
Well, I'll pretty resentful, but I try not to be, because I want to be a good mom and I want to be present for my kids. And having resentment is like, poison, and you don't get good things when you're thinking crap. So, but it's hard. I have a lot of um not mental, but like, I don't know, my grades, and not having a thyroid, I have to be really careful with my thyroid replacement dose. If it's too low, I start to get really depressed, and I start to feel like the world is just very dark and lonely and not worth living. And so I have to, when I start to get those kinds of thoughts, I need to go get blood work done and probably get more thyroid medication. But it's hard not having that emotional support that you were given from the girls in your group, being so close with them. If there is ever a moment you're struggling when you're in Cross Creek, you had someone to talk to. Like, there was always a girl there to listen and to really listen. And being out in this world, there's really no one. that'll listen to you that doesn't charge $200 an hour.
Yeah.
So it's not even like, not even your husband is emotionally capable of handling what I have to say. And so it's lonely. It's hard to find resourceful, supportive mom friends, because you don't know if you're just friends with them because your kids are around the same age, but they can't handle your shit, so they're not that supportive. And then like what happens with me is I had a group of friends that uh, I felt really comfortable with, but kind of went outside of we're just friends because our kids are all the same age. And so I forgot about that and started trusting them a little bit more. And I kind of started a healing journey and started bringing up some stuff like about my dad, about, other stuff. And it was a little beyond what I think they could handle. And they really backed away. So I think that's probably the hardest thing, is dealing with friendships with people that just can't handle the load you have. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
No, I definitely relate to that. People say I'm too much a lot. They say I smother. It's either I smother people, I fucking I care too much, I love too much, I fucking do everything too much. It just seems like it's always something that I'm doing too much of, or I'm doing too little of. It just seems like I'm always fucking up in some way, shape, or form with friendships and especially relationships. And I'm always on edge too. I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. So even if shit's like going really good, like, and I do trust this person, like, my mind's always fucking waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, it's just like, it just in the back of my mind, it just knows that the shoe is always gonna drop because it always fucking has in my life. So why would this be any different? So I struggle a lot
Yeah.
with that. And just relationships and friendships in general is just really hard for me. It's like, when do I disclose that I was raped at 7? Do I ever disclose that? What is the appropriate time to disclose that? What's the appropriate time to disclose I got fucking sent to boarding school? How much do I disclose of that at a time? How, like, is it too, like, I don't understand when you're supposed to tell people shit. Like, there's no manual, like, especially for us people that survived the boarding schools and shit. It's like, I feel like I've interviewed over 60 people now, and it's like a lot of people like have the same problem. It's just like they have trouble relating to people, and like they're always waiting for their shoe to drop. And like, is that something you struggle with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes I question, like, I didn't wake up from the brainwashing until I was about 27, like a year after I was married. And so sometimes I'm like, God, am I like trauma bonded with my husband? Like, he's been through some fucked up shit too and pretty neglected. Like, I hope our relationship goes so much deeper. And now than, being not being, I don't know. Does that make sense? Like,
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know. I think I just went off on it.
trauma bonding and
Uh,
having a full-on connection to somebody, I feel, are two different things. Because trauma bonding, like, for example, okay, anybody like, so I've talked to a couple people in like in a romantic sense that have been to a program before, right? And I'm even talking to one now that actually went to the same program that I went to. And so, yeah, there's
uh-huh.
already, like, when we first started talking, there was already this like magnetic like pull towards each other because we went through the same shit. So there's automatically that trauma bond, right? But that, to me,
Right.
like, it's hard to distinguish that between like love. So it's like it took me a longer time to be like, okay, I actually have other feelings besides just this trauma bond for you. You know what I mean? Like, I love you because of the trauma bond we have, but
Yes.
I actually love you, if that makes sense. Like, you know what I mean? And so it took me a while to come around to the fact that, yeah, it's not just like me being intoxicated with the fact that we have this huge, deep trauma bond. It's actually the fact that I can't get you off my mind, so I actually do love you. You actually do have feelings for you. So does that make any sense?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Um it's funny, like sometimes I'll start talking to like a girlfriend or a guy, and like we just have that immediate rapport, and that I just like start saying everything. Like, well,
Mhm.
I was molested when I was 11 years old by a family friend, and no one did anything about it. And then a couple months ago, my father-in-law tried to attack my son and ended up beating me, and so that's why I'm taking him to court, because no one stood up for me. And people are just like, I say that to people, and they're just like, oh wow, okay, your poor husband.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, why do I even say anything?
Yeah. Instead of just being there and being present and like listening. I think people, I think it just as a society as a whole, we're just like, a lot of us are just dumbed down and have blinders on to the point, like we don't want to listen to like the real shit that's going on or like that has happened to people. We just like, I feel like a lot of the world has their blinders on anyways right now, and they just don't want to hear it. Like whenever somebody gets real, I just feel like a lot of the time people don't want to, or they just can't handle it. I can't handle it. You know, I hear that all the time. It's like, you can't handle it or you won't handle it. You're choosing, like, you won't just like be an actual friend and like be fully present here and listen to me, so you're not a real friend, so we shouldn't even be, you know? Like there's a difference between like being an actual present friend in somebody's life, and that includes like actually listening to their trauma when they're going through some shit, like not backing away. That's not a real friend, you know what I mean? So it's just,
Absolutely.
I just feel like a lot of people are artificial these days, and it's just.
Yep. Yep. I would say probably 90% of my Instagram friends have me muted. It's such a joke. Either like my family thinks I'm crazy because I don't really hold back. I'm just like, you know what, narcissists suck. Here's what happened today. Or because my husband and I own a property management company, and it's probably one of the worst jobs. Don't ever become a landlord. It is the most testing because you have an angry tenant, there's no boundaries. So it is they come at you right away, and everything is your fault when it's not. You like it's very trying, but I'll share about like a disgruntled tenant and just be like, how should I handle this? And no one will comment. They'll mute it or like skip through or something. And I've actually had like my brother and his sister like completely unfollow me altogether, probably because I'm being too negative. I would say if anybody were to look at my social media, they'd be like, she's too negative. I can't follow her stuff, but it's all real. It's all real stuff, like in my
It's valid.
life. This
It's
is my
valid.
life.
It's fucking valid too,
Yeah,
because you're feeling it, so it's fucking valid, dude. Just because it's not valid to you doesn't mean that it's not valid. It's valid to her, and she feels
yeah,
this way. So you don't have to agree. She's just telling you how she feels, and also you don't have to fucking look at her page. You have the option to just like
exactly.
scroll by. Like you don't have to stop on her comment on her shit and then leave some nasty ass comment either. You know, you don't have to do that either. You can just scroll on by. It's really fucking pretty simple. So it's just, I don't know. People are
Yeah,
just.
I had a friend, we're not friends anymore, but I was sharing about some stuff about my dad and how it was making me feel. And she didn't tell me like in person or comment publicly, but she did write me saying that if I didn't just drop it, I was going to fuck up my kids. And that was like super hard for me to even hear, because I'm like, you're supposed to be like a supportive friend, and you're telling me I'm fucking up my kids because I'm sharing about something on social media that my kids are too young to even read. Like,
Yeah. First of all, it's none of their business to even
oh
talk about how to parent your kid in the first place. And second of all, how it, like your point, how are they even on your social, like, I don't think your kids are like scrolling through your feed every fucking like 5 seconds. I don't think it's like that. Like,
no,
so,
no, my kids are 4 and 6.
yeah,
They're not going on social media. They're just trying to be kids, and now
yeah,
I don't even have any like regular play date friends, because I'm deemed as the problem, and Katie's just too real. Katie's just too negative. And I'm like, this isn't negative. This is called a healing journey. It's not all goddesses and fairies and beautiful crystals all the fucking time. Like, there's some heavy shit. And yeah, I'm walking through it right now. So be supportive and cheer for me.
Hey,
cheer me on. You're going to get through this.
They should be grateful that you're talking about it and not completely silent, because when you're completely silent, that's when you got to start fucking worrying. When they just get completely silent and stop saying anything, because then you know some shit's about to like just pop off. Because at least you're voicing the shit and not repressing it and not like pushing it down, because like that's never good to repress anything.
Absolutely. So my Nana, she died on my birthday when I turned 27, and she had suppressed some pretty heavy emotions. She wasn't able to have children. She adopted my dad when he was a baby, and my grandfather, who she wasn't married to at the time, they got divorced, obviously, but he was really abusive to her and shamed her pretty hard. And so she lived the best life she could, but she ended up dying with a like softball sized tumor in her uterus. So if you can imagine all that built up shame around not being able to have children formed a tumor in the place where you have children, where you make a baby. And like that has really like struck a chord with me, to never bottle anything up, because it is just going to be manifested into something awful inside your body. So I don't care if they don't want to listen to me, if they don't want to hear what I have to say, but I have to get it out because I don't want to die that way. That's how I see it.
And your body and your emotions are meant to be a fluid thing. They're meant to be constantly flowing like a river. They're not meant to be fucking blocked up and like stopped. That's not the natural current of life. Is supposed to be flowing like a river all the time. Your emotions are supposed to be flowing like a river. Your feelings are supposed to be flowing like a river. It should always be like that. So that's
and emotions, good and bad, should never be suppressed or feared. And that's what I try to teach. Yeah, that's why I try to teach my children, like, it's okay to be mad. It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to be upset. And sometimes I'm like, stop whining, like if they're begging for something like chocolate or something like that.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, I get frustrated. I'm like, stop whining. I can't hear you when you're whining. Use your words, and they don't even know what I'm talking about. They're like, use my words. Like, I'm 4. Like, I'm going to whine. And I really have to take into account that I need to be more present to listen to them, because I'm getting mad that people aren't listening to me in regular communication, in just speaking about it. So kind of brings me back down to earth, and I really try to be a better parent and a friend for my kids that I don't have.
Not project what you're dealing with onto your kids accidentally or something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big one. Like, I'd rather get it out, like, and speak about it in another way somewhere else, so that I can just be home and happy with them, because they don't need to see mommy depressed or sad, or like sometimes like it gets so heavy, and I'll be driving my car and I'll just imagine just pushing on the gas pedal and just letting go. And yeah, and obviously they're never in the car when I think this way, but it gets really heavy and super lonely sometimes, just trying to go through this life completely alone. And I have my mom, but she's such a busy person that she's not capable of like sitting down and really listening to my emotions. So it's still a pretty lonely journey right now.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel it. Well, if you ever need to talk to anybody, I'm always here to talk. I get it. I struggle with the same thing. My circle of friends is really small. I still struggle with that friend thing. One of my biggest things is I have trust issues. I'm an ex-drug addict. I've been homeless several times in my life. Out, so now my housing is going to be paid for mostly. But I'm on disability. I'm on state disability for PTSD, social anxiety, a bunch of shit, brain damage. So I can still work part-time, and I'm going to, but I just have, just very, very small circle, and most of the people that I consider friends are busy with work and actually working a regular job, so they don't really have time. I mean, yeah, I get to see them, but I don't want to just like trauma dump completely on them when I see them. Even though I could, like they're actual friends, and like I do that sometimes, but I try not to let so much shit get built up that I'm like completely trauma dumping. Because especially once I have a drink or two, then the trauma just starts coming out. But
Oh yeah, I'm the same way. I don't drink anymore because of that. I will just unload. I haven't really had like a drink to where I was like trauma dumping, like you say, in like over a year. And
I don't really
what was that?
I don't really drink either. It's just occasionally when I go out to see them, I drink a cider. But yeah, I'm just saying any sort of alcohol. But I'm on methadone, so that my medication interferes with the alcohol. So one drink to me is like 3. So I have to like be really like. But essentially, once I have like one cider, I'm like really talkative, is what I'm trying to say. So I try not to trauma dump because I'm always afraid that I'm gonna push people away. Even the one friend that I have, I've known since I was like 2 years old, and we have like a super like unbreakable bond, and I know that. But I'm still paranoid about pushing him away and like losing another friend, and I just seen. I know what people are capable of, like to the craziest degree, and like it's so hard for me to fucking trust people. Like even people that like the girl I'm talking to now. Like I trust her, but like I'm never gonna trust anybody 100% again after all the shit I've been through in my life. It's just I don't think it's possible for me. I don't think anybody should trust anybody 100%. I think you should trust them like 99% maybe, but leave at least 1% for that questionability, because people can always snap. I've found they can always fucking flip the script just like that, and before you know it, they're in your pockets taking your wallet or some fucking shit. Like it's just, it's despicable the shit I've seen. But anyways, I just wanted to say I could relate on that, and I do have a few more questions for you. Uh, Knowing what you know now about these programs, is it your belief that they should all be shut down, or do you think that they should all just be completely, fully regulated? What's your opinion on that?
I oh, I think that there's a lot of parents out there that need a lot of help, and I would worry about the kids with really broken homes. Not like maybe it's better like if the homes weren't um uh I don't I don't know what I'm trying to I think what I'm trying to say is it's kind of 50-50, like really regulated. um but I think that before accepting a child into a program, that the home really needs to be evaluated, and every parent needs to either go through some type of um, not I think the parents need more programming, deprogramming, and help before the kids, because the kids are just mimicking what their parents are doing. Like you grow up with your parents doing learning from your parents, and then you're going to get rid of your kid because you can't connect with your kids. So I think more parents need to go through a program. I don't know if that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, maybe even this is a little out there thought, but one thought that's it's an idea that I sort of support is maybe just evaluate like parents that want to have a child, evaluate them prior to having a kid even. Like have a psychological evaluation.
Yeah.
Make sure that you've dealt with all of your psychological trauma, so you're not don't end up projecting any of that onto your child and spoiling them. Like honestly, I
Yes.
kind of feel like they should be evaluated before you become a parent, before you even bring them into this world. If you want to have a kid, cool. will give you a certain amount of money, or there could be a government incentive program for parents. Like, don't make it like a law, but like have it as an incentive to actually get a psychological evaluation. And if you do this and you pass it, and then you have a child, we'll give you this lump sum of money, or we'll give you these benefits. Like, I think that should potentially be, I don't know, it's just an idea, but I kind of support it, because you got to start at the root, and that's like before the child is born. Like, if you're gonna bring a child into this world, like, at least in my opinion, like, the world's already a super treacherous place as it is. The child doesn't need your projected trauma in addition to the world's trauma, in my opinion. So
Yes, I completely hear what you're saying. I'm a little more on the freedom side. So any government program, I'm like, I don't know. Less government is better. But the values and the core system of people nowadays, especially um, relationships with women that are searching for just getting with the wrong man, or the wrong guy getting with the wrong woman. Like, there's just not enough time to really be real with people before children come in. And I know one day I'm going to say this to my kids, that I am so sorry I didn't heal before you were born. Like, I know I'm doing it now, but I definitely see some things that I'm like, there's something called generational trauma that I
yep,
strongly believe in.
transgenerational
And
epigenetics.
yeah, so the shit you
Yeah.
don't work out becomes you. It like gets lodged into your DNA and you pass that on.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are not clean of that, you are going to pass that spider web straight onto your kids, and then your kids are going to be out of nowhere reacting in a way where you're just like, I've never like showed them that much hostility or aggression. Why are they so aggressive? Well, it could be because the father never worked through the stuff that happened with his father, and now it's being attacked. This like generational trauma is now on my son, and I think it can skip too.
Oh,
So
it can
even if
skip generations.
parents, yeah, so even if you go through that psychological evaluation and you come out good, but you got a really fucked up parent, like it might still be there.
Yeah.
So it's hard it's hard to ever um prevent an awful life, or really um dis what's that word, dysfunctional
Dysfunction.
family, I think. Yeah, but if our society would be more promoting of um, supporting your kids, and especially them older. Like right now, it's like, oh, it's so wonderful when they're little, and oh, it's so great when they're toddlers and when they're babies, and watch out, it's never going to end. Or, like there's not a lot of information out there on how to bond with your teenager
Yeah.
or your preteen. And so I don't see that out in society on get connected with your daughter or your son at 12 years old, or it's 14 years old, it's time to do something great with your family, or I don't see that.
Yeah.
It's only the first couple years when life is fun and joyous, and the kids are always happy and just happy to be with you. But what about when they're trying to break away and be independent? Where do you connect then? How do you connect?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. These are all very good questions to be asking.
Yeah, because I know that all I wanted was to feel a connection with my family. Like I wanted to be a good big sister. I wanted to be a good daughter. I wanted to be a good friend. I wanted to do all this stuff, but there was a lot of forces against me, and a lot of things out of my control, and which led me down a lot of being misunderstood, and um, I wasn't being heard. And then voila, I have a thyroid autoimmune disease, and that's right there in your throat. So it doesn't surprise me that I wasn't being heard. And then I start to get a problem with my throat where you're speaking from,
Yeah. Very interesting. All
Yeah.
right. Is there anything else you want to touch on, or that you want people to know about your experience?
I mean, really just find a way to connect with your family. And when your kids are having a hard time and they're acting out, they are looking for a connection. They're looking for love. They're looking for attention. And if our society is just going to continue to well, I mean, it's really changed since I was a kid. Society now is like very much being different is great, like
Mhm.
being yourself, be unique. It has done like a 180 since the early 2000s. And it's bizarre to me because like nowadays high schools, there's no nerds, there's no popular, well, it's just everybody is kind of like their own clique. But it's okay to be different, and it's okay to be weird. And like the kids that I see walking out of the high school in the town I'm in, they're like, most of them are wearing pajamas and they just look like a mess, like an 80s, like they walked out of an 80s music video or something. But when I was a kid, there was so much pressure to be perfect, and you got to wear that short skirt and, have that Abercrombie and Fitch jacket, or wear that specific brand of bikini. Like back in Maui, everything was so, um, you had to try so hard. But the connection with your family just wasn't there for me. And so I would seek the attention elsewhere. And, like I was 15, I had a boyfriend that was 21, and I didn't really like him, but he was fulfilling the needs that I needed for a father figure, because
Yeah.
my dad was emotionally and mentally not available to me. So yeah, I think all teenagers, they just need a little more support. And I hope that if parents are take the time to listen to this, I know it's a lot, um, to just please love your kids and try not to judge them. And if they're being weird, like praise them and support them and try to get to know them as they're going through this life transformation of trying to find their own voice and their own rhythm to things, and show them what it is like to be a good person and to be supportive to people and have compassion and empathy. I didn't have a lot of empathy. No one really stopped to really think about how I was feeling or where I was coming from. And I hope that any parent with a preteen or anyone that's having a hard time is to find that empathy, no matter how hard it is. If you have to go on a vacation or something, but you gotta switch it up. Like that's my biggest fear of when my kids get to that age. I told my husband, like, we can't be in a small town, we need to be traveling. Like I'm so afraid of when they are a teenager, because I do not want to be like to regress down to how I was treated when I was a teenager, out of just being overwhelmed as being a mom, and which comes really easily. And so like we need to be like traveling, like we need to get a motorhome and go hit up like every single national park. And I homeschool my kids, so I plan on homeschooling them forever. And that's kind of what I hope to be as a parent, is to always have that connection with my kids, and so where they can trust me and talk to me about anything that's going on with them, and so that they don't need to go looking for it elsewhere and acting out and getting in trouble.
Amen to all that. Amen to all that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
And
so
get
much.
some blood work, damn it.
Yeah, yeah, for real. Check their blood work first before you make rash decisions. Um,
Yes.
okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I just wanted to let you know you have my number. I believe you're Cece, right?
What's that?
Are you Cece on Facebook? Cece? Is that you?
No,
It's a different
no.
person. Okay. Okay. Well, are you the one who's been texting me?
Yeah.
Texting, right? You have my number?
Yes, I do. I do.
Okay, cool. Well, I was just gonna say, if you ever need anybody to talk to, or if this, generally, what happens after these interviews is that a lot of stuff gets brought up, and then people end up taking notes or whatnot, and they end up wanting to do a part two, or I'll do a part two just to check up and check in with you. So if that's something you'd be interested in, we can do that. But just know that I'm here to talk if you ever want to talk, and I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jordan. It's been a relief to get this out, and I hope it wasn't too much. It was a lot. So I don't know if we'd need a round two for this, but yeah, I appreciate you taking the time and talking to me and relating. I really value that. Thank you.
No problem. To those of you've watched this long in the video, please make sure you give the video a thumbs up, share the video, leave a comment down below what you thought of the video, maybe any thoughts you had, stuff that you can relate to, stuff like that. Really helps the algorithm. And with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in, and let's keep fighting the good fight and get these schools either shut down or completely fucking fully regulated. Or a mix of,
Yes.
no, not a mix of two, but just probably preferably just shut down. But yeah, everybody have a good evening, and thank you guys for tuning in.